Velasco, and thank you for reading.
Manny Pacquiao, the gold, I don't think there will be a problem for Manny.
Has its share of great fights. But every once in a while, human mind can also be controlled and muscle.
Only here para sa bayan.
That's the opening bell for Round by Round, presented by Eastern Communications. Mabuhay Pilipinas, welcome world. I'm Bill Velasco.
And I'm Ryan Sangalia. Boyd Cison joins us later on in the show.
All right, one of the big stories that broke late yesterday was the International Olympic Committee announcing that it would make an announcement regarding weightlifting and boxing in the 2024 Olympics. Now, for those of you who are not aware, these two have issues in terms of governance, and that shows up in different forms. In weightlifting, it's been mostly over 50 established cases of steroid use, and which is why weightlifting has been gradually cut down. You know, from the previous Olympics, there were 260 participants. In Tokyo, there were only 196. In Paris, there are only supposed to be 120. Now, boxing, we all know it's the case of corruption, poor judgment, literally messing up all of the judging in major events like the Olympics. And Ryan, they proved that in 2016 there was a lot of bout fixing in the Rio Olympics.
Yes, in fact, Michael Conlon from Ireland, he famously flipped off the bird to the judges and referees at ringside, and that kind of built his profile up. And then it turns out, oh wait, there was some manipulation of the judging in that fight. So it really kind of vindicated Conlon's vulgarity. But this is nothing new. This is nothing new. I mean, one of the indelible memories of Olympic boxing is 1988, when Roy Jones was robbed blind in Seoul, Korea, did everything but kill the guy, and lost the decision in the gold medal match to the home country boxer. AIBA is a hopelessly corrupt organization. They have I don't believe that this is something that can be fixed. They have a long history, an entrenched history of just bad decisions, corruption. And we saw in these most recent Olympics, there were a lot fewer bad decisions once AIBA was removed from Tokyo.
Yes,
and
that's why the Philippines got 3 medals in boxing.
Isn't it weird? You remove this organization and you have like the actual IOC overseeing judging, and all of the countries that typically are very close to AIBA, they start to lose, and these other countries rise up. So I think that sort of illustrates what the problem is with AIBA. They have been they are too entrenched in the politics of boxing, and I don't believe you can fix that.
Now, my question is this, though. In the case of weightlifting, for example, Chin Shan Lo, who got the bronze medal to Heidelin Diaz in the new 55 kilogram weight class, was one of the athletes from her country who medaled in the previous Olympics, was found to have used steroids, and she was stripped of her medals and banned from the sport. Now, the problem with boxing is it's not the athlete that's the problem, it's the judging. So how do you fix that? Do you just give another gold medal to the person who was cheated in the finals? I mean, that's the thing about it. You can't really rewrite the history. And we're talking, you mentioned 1988. I was in Atlanta in 1996. Ron De Los Reyes was my roommate. I was covering basketball. He was covering boxing, and he famously covered the Onyok Velasco scam and said it was a robbery in Atlanta. Onyok was beating Daniel Bodilov half to death in the first round, looks up at the score and sees himself behind. And we heard that was because Bodilov was the last remaining Bulgarian, and it would have been an embarrassment to one of the officials of AIBA if no Bulgarians won a gold medal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we see a lot of preferential treatment. I remember in 2012, they actually overturned a decision, not in like a gold medal match, but in one of the preliminaries, because Azerbaijan, the boxer from Azerbaijan, had gotten a pretty blatant robbery decision, and they go, we're just gonna fix it and have the guy put back. But you talk about rewriting history. One of the fights in 2016 that investigations found had manipulating judging was the super heavyweight final between Joe Joyce and Tony Yoka. And if you have a gold medal, the difference in how much money you can sign for is significant. So when you go to turn professional. So these have real life consequences on boxers and their lives. It's not just about pride. It's you're affecting people's lives at that point. And AIBA, they have shown themselves to be pretty shameless in their existence. And it's like, how do you fix a sanctioning body? It's really easy. You make it disappear. So I think that's the way. I think you have to start from scratch. I think you have to get rid of, when you're talking about the swamp, you can't, just drain the swamp. You have to pave over it, and start a new swamp. And that's what's going on here with AIBA.
And the fact of the matter is, this has been going on for so long, and it happens more frequently at the SEA Games, which is, the lowest tier of competition here, where you actually have them allocating medals to. They have a meeting, and everybody says, "Oh, Philippines, how many gold medals you want?" And of course, the Filipinos will say, "Can we have all of them?" No, one or two only. So it's preordained. So why do you even bother showing up to a competition? Just hand them the medals. I mean, for goodness sake, it's really so shameless already. Plus, AIBA's been changing the rules so much in the last 5-6 years or so. Do you foresee, however, boxing not being in the 2024 Olympics?
I think that would be a real shame. And the reason why is because boxing was one of the original sports of the Olympics. And if you get rid of, an original sport, you're really taking it away from the fabric that makes the Olympics special. I don't believe that we should be penalizing the athletes. I think that this is something that can be fixed through actually caring about fair judging. The famous out, the dodge that boxing officials have whenever there's a controversial decision is, boxing is a subjective sport. Yeah, kinda. But sometimes it's pretty objective when you see one fighter is dominating the other, and then they obviously rob him. There's we talk about the SEA Games. The SEA Games, it's really the lowest level boxing. It doesn't really matter on this scale, but it's for a few days, it's a great sporting extravaganza for Southeast Asia. But you see some pretty awful judging, and there's no because so you have these countries like Malaysia and Indonesia and which don't traditionally have boxing. When you talk about boxing in Southeast Asia, you're really talking about the Philippines, the Philippines up here, and then you have like Thailand, they had a couple of Olympic level boxers. But then the rest of the countries, if they're hosting it, they can manipulate how many weight classes they're going to, because they're like, we don't want to give this country an advantage. I mean, we saw in Malaysia, they actually eliminated women's boxing entirely because they didn't have women's boxers. That shouldn't be our problem. That should be, hey, get with the times. Let's train some women's boxers. This is a place where you can win gold medals. It's not anyone else's fault. And then, to make sure that Malaysia gets a gold medal, they rob some boxers.
Yeah, in 2007, I was in Thailand for the SEA Games. Thereafter, the Philippines won the overall in 2005. And in a span of 2 days, there were 14 gold medal matches in boxing and other martial arts, and the Philippines only won one gold medal. Our athletes were involved in 14 gold medal matches, and the only one that we won was when Annie Albania knocked out her opponent. And the athletes were crying even before their own matches because they knew already that they were going to get screwed. And that is something really that we have to stop. And the only thing you can do is really replace the people involved, because the IOC per se has no people to run the event. So it relies on the International Federation. Now, if the International Federation is the problem, then you have to pull it up by the roots and make changes.
You mentioned it, you have to score a knockout to guarantee it. If you look at 2017 at the gold medal match, Yamir Marshall, he fought, the Malaysian middleweight. It was so bad. It was such a big mismatch that nothing was going to save this guy. But the referee gave a standing 8 count to the Malaysian, seconds into the fight. I mean, it was that one-sided. And then he's like, "Oh, wait, let me wipe his face down." The fight's only been on for 10, 15 seconds, and you need to wipe the boxer's face, and then sends Marshall to the wrong corner, and then it gives him basically another 20 seconds to recover. But of course, when you have one guy who can fight and one guy who can't, that's a big advantage. So Marshall still ended up knocking him out, but the referee did everything he could to make sure that Marshall didn't.
Well, we really hope that the IOC makes the right decision and finds a way without intervening internally to compel AIBA to make changes. In other news, Nonito Donaire wants to drop down to 115 pounds and feels that he will be potent at that weight. What are your thoughts on that, Ryan?
Yeah, so I was speaking with Richard Schaefer, the president of Probellum, which has signed Nonito Donaire to a promotional contract, and we were talking about his future plans, and he said, well, we could unify against Casimero, we could bring that fight back to life, or Donaire could drop down to 115 pounds and fight for a world title at that weight class. That would make him if he was to win a world championship there, he would be a 5-division champion, which would really boost his statistical standing in history. So I think that would be great if he can do that safely. The issue is that, as you get older, he's, pushing 39 years old, dropping down in weight carries with it a lot of new dangers because, your body may not react to that weight the same way.
Your muscles are already mature, and it's also bad for the heart. Yeah,
it can be. Yeah. And kidneys and all those other important organs. So if Donaire can do it, it would be really interesting because there are a lot of big fights that can be had there because 115 pounds is still one of the glamour divisions right now in boxing because, you have Chocolatito Gonzalez is there, Juan Francisco Estrada, Sri Saket Sarangvisai, and, there's a lot of potential there.
Well, the funny thing is last year, around December of last year, Donaire was saying that, he could win at 130 pounds as well. So, what's the deal here? Why keep going down instead of going up? Wouldn't it be easier?
What I believe is I don't think he can win at 130.
Sure.
And it's not because he doesn't have this great ability. I mean, at 126, he was already undersized when he fought for the world championship there. I was there in Macau, and he was kind of fortunate to get out of that situation the way he did with the cut. And, there was a knockdown. He did score a knockdown, but he was getting hurt in that fight too. So when you go up in weight, when you get touched by those bigger fighters, that's a real problem. I couldn't imagine him being in the ring with Oscar Valdez or someone like that. Donaire is
are we talking clean Oscar Valdez?
Well, that you'd have to also think that's the case too. But that's the thing with Donaire. He is a gunslinger, and those kind of fighters get hit. And when you get hit by those bigger fighters, something different happens.
Yeah, I think when he started moving up in weight, I think he realized that they weren't going down as much, but dropping down to 115, interesting proposition. at that age more than anything else. But we all saw what happened to all those guys that Manny Pacquiao made move down in weight. I mean, he's practically the catchweight king. When he asked people like Margarito to move down in weight, he asked De La Hoya to fight at the weight he hadn't fought at in 6 years. We all see the effect. You're fighting somebody probably at what, 70% of what they could be.
Yeah, no, that's cash is king in boxing. It's a business first, and if you can negotiate something, where you can have an advantage, yeah, go for it. I mean, we saw that with Floyd Mayweather Jr. throughout his career. Like he fought Canelo Alvarez at a catch weight. There were reports that he was going to actually fight Winky Wright at middleweight or junior middleweight, but Winky had to have a same day weigh-in, I believe was the clause. And Winky, of course, said, no, thank you. So yeah, no, if you can negotiate something good for your career, give yourself an advantage, sure. But I think the real boxing fans would be like, I wonder if that's straight up. So there's a catch-22.
And now it's time for our fearless forecast of the day, brought to you by Eastern Communications. And Ryan is making a somewhat bold prediction regarding the outcome of the Canelo Alvarez Caleb Plant tiff. Ryan, this is on you.
I'm going to go with Canelo Alvarez by seventh round knockout against Caleb Plant. And I'll tell you why. This may seem a little bit silly, but I've been watching boxing long enough, and I understand egos and a little bit about egos, and I understand, everything is posturing in boxing. So when they had the stare down, right, and there was like the push, and then Caleb Plant came after Canelo to try and hit him, and Canelo dodged it and then countered with an open hand, slapped him and cut him, caused a cut on his face. I thought to myself, why would anyone buy this fight now? They gave it away for free. We saw the difference in their
you got the highlights.
Yeah, we saw the reflexes, the athleticism, all that edge that Canelo has. This is what the fight's gonna look like. Caleb Plant's gonna go out there, try something. It's not gonna work, and Canelo is going to counter him. And he already cut him with an open hand. Why would we want to see him punch him now if we already see what a slap can do? So I think that this fight is going to be pretty one-sided. I think that Canelo Alvarez is on another level from everyone else in boxing, and Caleb Plant just happened to be in the way, and we're going to see an all-time great performance from Canelo Alvarez, in my opinion.
Right. That is our Eastern Communications Fearless Forecast of the day. Now is the time for reliable connections. Eastern Communications Fiber One is ideal for powering small to medium enterprises that are on their way to digitizing their business and pushing toward or forward to a strong and fearless tomorrow. Do contact 53007,000 or visit their website eastern.com.ph for more information on the service. And now we turn you over to our colleague Boyet Sison with an exclusive interview.
Mga kaibigan, ladies and gentlemen, we are very, very fortunate to have on this edition of Round by Round one of the first, if not the first, female Hall of Famer to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Mga kaibigan, Christy Salters Martin.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate you being with me today and giving me the opportunity.
Christy, my first question is something which not many people know, but you are actually a graduate with honors from Concord College. But what made you get into boxing?
That's one of the best questions that anyone could ask, because I ask myself that question. Why did I think boxing was a good thing for me to try? But for some reason, I wanted the challenge, the competition. I loved it. Once I did the Tough Man contest the first time, I was hooked, and I really wanted to learn how to box.
For a lot of people that are not familiar with your career, you came into boxing at the time wherein female boxers were not really that accepted as far as the sport is concerned. You getting into boxing, how was the landscape at the time you got in?
Oh, it was very tough. I mean, tough from all aspects. To find opponents was hard. To find a promoter that was willing to give me an opportunity to fight on the show was hard. To sell tickets, to be accepted by the fans, it was all a challenge. But I feel like with each challenge, I would just step up my game just a little bit more, push a little harder, and get a little more acceptance each time out.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, if you get the chance to go on YouTube and watch Christie's fights on YouTube, you'll be very amazed as to how this woman would really just go and let it all hang out. For the many fights that you've had, and you've fought a lot of them, Christy, you fought a lot of the best. Who would you consider were the toughest ones?
You know, they were all tough. They were all tough. And I think the very, very truth is I was my toughest opponent because I was never happy. I was always critical of everything that I did and wanted to do better. So I was always my hardest critic and probably, as I say, my toughest opponent. But and everybody brought their A+ game when they fought me. Even people I would watch on video and think, oh, this should be an easier night. I find myself in round 6, round 7, round 8, like, dang, when all of a sudden they get this toughness. But I was their Super Bowl.
Yes, you were the Super Bowl. You were at the top of the totem pole, and everybody wanted to get a piece of you, and you gave them a piece of yourself as well. For you as a boxer that has fought a lot of really good female boxers as well, did you have any opportunity to fight male boxers?
No, I wasn't interested in that male versus female as an actual fight. My sparring partners were mostly men throughout my entire career. I had a sparring partner, Jimmy Maloney, that sparred with me basically from the beginning to the end. And then we would just sprinkle in different people from time to time. But I was never interested in actually fighting a man. And so what? If you found a man that I was able to beat, then you want to step up and find a tougher man. And then eventually I get hurt and it makes no sense. I wanted to be looked at as a fighter, a good fighter, male or female, but I wanted to be the best female fighter.
And you being one of the best female fighters landed you that induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. But I'll get to that question right after I ask this. Did you play any other sport?
I did. I played basketball all throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, and then a little in college as well. And then I played a little softball, not much, but I would consider myself as an athlete, at least when I was young. Maybe not today, but yeah, I always loved sports and the challenge of winning. I wanted to win, no matter what I did. If it was playing checkers, I wanted to win.
You remind me of somebody who's very popular, who's about to run for the presidency in our country, and he likes to play a lot of different sports, and he does not also want to lose at any of them. But let me now move to the Hall of Fame. For a lot of male boxers, the Boxing Hall of Fame is the top of the totem pole as far as platitudes and achievements are concerned. You being the first female to have that honor, how did that strike you?
It's unbelievable. I mean, I come from such a small town in southern West Virginia, and then to get the fight in Las Vegas, fight in New York, and now to be inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Quick story, back in 1996, I was the Grand Marshal for the weekend. And I remember telling the guys that were getting inducted that year, you know, you guys, one of these days, you're going to need a sister. And never thinking in a million years that I would get to be that sister.
Of all the fighters that gets to be inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, you were chosen to be the first one. Okay. Now, let me ask you this. After a very illustrious career, what made you decide not to fight anymore?
Well, that's a good question. You know, in my mind today, I wake up and I think I can still fight, but the truth is I can't. And I did have a stroke back in 2011, so that kind of put the end of my career. I tried to come back and have one more fight, lost to a bum, and realized that my boxing days were done. But yeah, if I mentally, physically, if I physically was able to still be fighting, I would be like Evander and Mike Tyson and the rest of those guys, still crawling in the ring, wanting to hear those cheers one more time. I love the sport, but at the end, then 2010, at that time it was done. It was over. I was probably finished when Lucia Riker decided to pull out and not step up and fulfill her contract commitment in 05. I think that fight was supposed to happen, and that really took the desire. I mean, I had fought everybody and beaten everybody that I could at that time, and that kind of ended my career, actually.
And that's the final bell for today's episode of Round by Round, presented by Eastern Communications. I'm Bill Velasco.
And I'm Ryan Sangalia. We're on Facebook at 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and on our YouTube channel right after. So like, follow, share, and subscribe now.
And when Ryan says now, he means now. For tomorrow's episode, you're going to have Dennis Principe, Boyet Season, and Nisi Icasiano working the fights for you. Catch them on the next episode of Round by Round. All boxing, all Filipino, all the time. See you.